William Pike, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Pleasure to be here.
Very excited to have you in the Export Beer Garden studio today. Had a cool moment before we recorded this morning where producer Sam was like, oh my God, William Pike's coming in. I did the William Pike challenge at school. How cool is that?
Great.
Do you get a lot of that?
I'm starting to more and more. And I think, kids are kind of a bit shy, kind of coming up to me, but I love it when they do. They're like, hey, I did the William Pike challenge. I did this for my community service. This is my passion project. I'm like, oh, tell me more. So I get a real buzz out of when people come up and say something like that.
Fills your cup. We have heard a lot of stories about the legend of Pike over the last week. Friends and family have really come to the party on this one. Is this your first Kiwi podcast experience?
I think it's my first podcast experience, hands down. So, yeah.
I love a guest that brings notes in as well because they want to nail their performance. So I appreciate the preparation.
No worries.
Yeah, that's nice. So one of the themes that came through loud and clear from your friends was that you were a bit of a loose unit in your youth. Hoping you could start by telling us about your first email address.
Loose unit for you at hotmail.com. And it came about, and I was sitting at the old PCs back in the day, big clunky things, big old hard drives. And I had set up an email address, don't know what it was for, and I was looking around on the back of mum and dad's car was this big sticker, loose unit. And I thought, there we go. That's my inspiration. And kind of fitted with my persona at the time. So I was like, let's do this. And rest is history, right?
How have you still got it? Is it still in operation?
I think after my accident, I kind of got into more, kind of business and speaking things. I'd look at this, I'm like, this is not a good look here.
So you did send a few out from loose unit?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
And I was like, I've got to ditch this now. I've got to go to something more sensible. So maybe I should have left it,
Yeah. Guests of a certain age, we really connect over the early Hotmail names. I think Karen Reid was still operating a Hotmail account. I had a group of friends and there was DJ Sweats at Hotmail, Gangbang Gaza, and I was whopping one at Hotmail.com.
I'm still running my Hotmail operation. Yeah. Seamus _. Actually, I won't give it out.
Whoa, I can probably guess.
Just in case. But yeah, I think me and Kieran Reid are probably the only two people in New Zealand that are still running a Hotmail.
So to summarise your high school years, we're kind of going to climb into it. You started at Westlake in the lowest stream class they had. And by 7th form, you were a prefect. And in the middle, you were part of an all-star water polo team that won nationals 3 years in a row. And your mate Nick told us a story that kind of painted a picture of you in high school. It's a good story. I see you like, oh shit, what's Nick said? He said there's this one big game with this big crowd and they were all chanting his name. And he wasn't a star player, but was a real crowd favourite. He said the crowd were more excited about getting William Pike subbed into the game than the result of the game. Is that a fair reflection of...
That sounds like a true story because I was very much, left, right, out or bench warmer was my kind of position. But when I did get in, I'd give it my hundy and I had a lot of fun. And probably the biggest thing I take from those water polo days was those mates that I made back then. Oh, they're still great mates today. And man, we had some good water polo parties in the days. The friendships built out of it was probably what carried me through some of my tough times. Well, absolutely did. So yeah, reflecting on the water polo days, we had a lot of fun. And my enthusiasm was a bit greater than my skill, let's say.
And is it that same group of water polo mates that the 40th is planned for? Trip to Fiordland?
In a couple of weeks. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's right. So, I mean, hey, look at that, like 20 odd years plus onwards and we're still kicking around together. Bloody good.
Yeah, planning's going to be a big theme in the set, but that's been sort of 2.5 years in the making, is it, that trip?
Yeah, I remember sitting around in COVID and thinking, man, we could have something to look forward to here. And Nick and I, my mate, having a chat and we thought, right, something we'd always wanted to do. And I'd actually paddled in Doubtful Sound for about an 8-day trip with another mate, years beforehand. I was like, I've got to go back. But I think, to get everyone along that's not used to kind of half-star accommodation. And I thought we might need to do a bit more comfort and style. So this is what we're going to do this time, but on a big boat. So, man, I'm pumped for that trip. I've been starting my packing already and all sorts. So
yeah, exciting. Is there a WhatsApp chat that accompanies it or a group chat that 2.5 years of accumulated group chat banter must be something to behold?
Yeah, you guys know all the backstories. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of, I was sending through a few photos last night, kind of getting my stuff organised. In one crate's all the gear, another crate's all my clothing, and the boys are banding back, being like, "Mate, you can't take those crates on the chopper. What are you doing?" I was like, "No, they're going to go into some soft bags." But yeah, I love my gear. I love kind of packing. I love just kind of getting ready for it, and I thrive off an adventure.
So the picture that was painted to us is that in this WhatsApp group, like you have sent through your packing list, and in WhatsApp, if the message is too long, it gets that little like read more. Like you have to click the read more. You're like, what are you up to, man? Is that
that's me? I mean, you're like, dive leg, spare foot, spare sleeves, wetsuit bottoms, because I can't borrow the wetsuit bottoms on the boat because I got one leg shorter than the other, right? So that's my excuse. I'm like, look, guys, I've got to bring a bit of extra kit, to accommodate for the old leg here. So I'll blame it on a bit of that. But I'm still going to get a bit of grief for it.
How far out from a trip like that are you having to prep all of your specific equipment that you do need?
Well, like I enjoy going down to my garage and just like clearing the workbench, usually a bit of stuff that shouldn't be there, and just starting to lay out gear and be like, oh yeah, I think I need that EPIRB and my survival blanket, and I need my binos and make sure I've got my ammo and my bolt and everything all sorted out. It's just part of the process. Like I love it. I love kind of getting prepped for that type of thing, and it's part of the trip. So, probably a good few weeks out.
Staying on the packing theme, your wife, Bex, is a legend. I had a great yarn with her yesterday, and she's given me a few good stories that I think might help paint a little bit of a picture of William Pike, the character. And they involve the birth of your children. So Harriet, you got two kids. How old are they now?
Two great kids, Oliver, who's 4, and Harriet, who's almost 7.
So 7 years ago, you packed your bag for the birth of Harriet, and there was a few interesting, I don't know what you'd call them, items that you put in there, which created a little bit of a storyline. What did you put in there, Will?
So one of the things was one of my favourite knives, and I'd sharpened that up, and my hunting knife, and I thought, well, this is going to be a bit of fun if I can like cut the placenta with this, like, what an awesome kind of story, and what a cool thing to do, with my kind of hunting knife. And I also had in there some fishing line. I was kind of working on some different knots.
This is in the birth bag, just to be clear.
Birth bag, like grad bag, you know what I mean? Like, And, what else was there? And I was ready to eat meals, right? Because I was like, I don't know how long I'm going to be kicking around here for. I need to be on game, and I need to be 100% here. But it could be a bit of downtime. So I had my knots, I had my knife. I was ready to go.
Just for clarity, you were going to a birthing unit in a hospital?
Yep, North Shore Hospital.
Yeah. I wasn't sure, just in case in case you wanted to go somewhere extreme for the birth.
Wasn't the garden shed? No, it was North Shore Hospital.
And Oliver, was it a similar situation of some quirky items?
Well, I still had the knife. I thought I'd try that again, because when I got around to asking the nurses, they're like, absolutely no way. And I was like, look, I've sharpened it, I've sterilised it. No deal. So it's a bit of a hoot.
But was there a snorkel and a mask? For,
yes, now it's coming back. Thanks for digging a bit deeper. I had a new spare fishing mask, nice green one, low profile, a nice snorkel on there, and I was like, look, babe, I'm just going to need to bring this along just in case it gets kind of ugly in here. And really just winding her up, So the old mask and snorkel was a feature there in case there's any, backsplash or anything like that, but not needed. I think I was great for the birth. I was holding a hand. I was at the business end. I was at the other end. I was just I was wanted to see it all happening, and to see a healthy baby come out was just a real treat.
When I saw that, I thought it must have been a water birth, and that you wanted to get right in there and get.
Well, now it's all coming back to me, because there was obviously the option of water birth, and I remember going along and having a look at the big kind of spa bath. It looks pretty good. Could sit in here for a few hours, and maybe that was part of the reason for the snorkel and mask as well. So
it's obviously stuck in Bex's mind. She's thought that was
Just out of curiosity, did you have a birthing bag for any of the 4 of your 4?
Did I have a birthing bag?
Did you have anything?
Not a memorable one. It would have had very bare.
But you definitely took.
Yeah, I didn't take fishing nylons or snorkels or masks.
I just wanted to compare and contrast.
Yeah. No, great. Okay. So I want to sort of take back to high school and where falling in love with the outdoors came from. Was it during outdoor education?
It was, yeah. So at Westlake, we were lucky. We had a year 13 7 form outdoor ed class, And well, actually, no, I started it. I did the outdoor ed in year 12, right, sixth form, and it's something I've been looking forward to for my entire time at Westlake Boys. And I knew that there was snorkeling, diving, there was a tramping, what do you call it, term, there was rock climbing and shooting. And I was like, this is just going to be the best, right? So a couple of key memories from outdoor education. One of them was snorkeling going up to the Great Mercury Islands off Coromandel there, with our teacher, Mr. Mullins, who was a real passionate diver, and diving around in this just crystal clear 20 plus meter visibility water, seeing crayfish. I couldn't get one. I was trying so hard, but I couldn't get one. But just had just a very vivid memory. And probably building on that too was then heading into the Kaimanawa Ranges with our group. And one of the things we were to do was have an overnighter survival night. So no sleeping bags, no tents. We really got shipped off into the bush with one of those silver survival blankets. And the clothes we had on our back, a lighter and a little bit of tucker. And I just thought this was the best, right? It's going to be so much fun. So we set out early, and I remember kind of creating our our bivouac and putting the survival blanket over the top, and created ourselves a really good shelter. It was Werner, my good mate Ash, and I. And we all kind of fit in there pretty well. We kind of stoked the fire up, and it was all going good as gold. And that was until in the middle of the night, I think Werner woke up with his boot in the fire, and this was a flaming boot right now, and he took off into the bush. And I remember kind of seeing this flame really bouncing up and down, going through the bush, and couldn't quite work out what it was, and a daze waking up. And really from there, I look back on those times, I'm like, oh man, it was so fun crossing those creeks and doing those bivvies. And I remember climbing up steep hills and like going on this massive adventure. I was like, wow, like I can do that stuff, like I kind of feel free. And I really think it was those things that gave me an enormous amount of confidence, but also like taught me some skills like how to be a bit of a team player and how to be resilient and how to be a problem solver going across those creeks, let's say. And I think it was those experiences that I had that really did kind of prepare me to overcome some big challenges. But I also, think back and I just have a laugh because we did small ball rifle shooting under the music block at Westlake Boys High School, believe it or not. Yeah. You get drums and things going off upstairs and little 22 rifles pinging away underneath, and it was just so cool. I think in this day and age, you might not get that past the board, but Westlake does feature as a real special time in my life of growing friendship groups, the water polo, and just that real, I guess, discovery of adventure and the bush and just loving being outdoors. Prior
to high school, had you had any of that in your family life? Like, was camping a feature of summer holidays or school holidays?
Mum and Dad were never big campers or trampers or things like that, but I think what they were good at was just giving me the odd opportunity here and there. So scouts, I did a bit of scouts, and I remember doing one walk down at the I can't remember, down by Waihi. Anyway, Kalangahape Gorge walk, that's what it was. And it was just 20-odd K walk, and we were about to kind of get going, and I was running around just being an idiot and tripped over and just put this massive cut in my leg. And again, I was like, no, I'm going to do this. And didn't think I could do it, but did this whole walk. And, and I guess that was the start of those adventures. But aside from the scouts, no, didn't.
It's crazy to think of how much of an impact high school can have on some people. Mm-hmm. And as we'll find out later on as we get through the story, it seems quite critical, some of the lessons that you picked up in year 12 and year 13.
Totally.
Yeah, so you sent us your book in the build-up to this, Every Day is Good Day. And holy shit, man, what a read. Like, it sold 40,000 copies, but the part that we're about to get to about what happened in your experience on Ruapehu is incredible. That's not a really great word to describe it. There's a lot there, but we're looking forward to digging into it. But to set the scene for, this was 2007. Mm-hmm. You were 22.
Yep.
Set the scene for what experience you'd had at that point in sort of mountaineering or climbing and where you were on the path, and then let's get into it.
Yeah, beauty. So my first introduction to climbing was through a mate called Cam Walker. And Cam Walker and I first met at a party on the North Shore. And I turned up.
Were you in Speedos?
I probably was earlier that day. But I think I was probably in some kind of short shorts and just kind of rough looking top. And I spied him from the corner of the party, and he was wearing Merrill shoes, jeans, and this MacPack jacket. And I thought, this guy,
dead giveaway,
is the business, right? I'm going to have a yarn to him. So we kind of had a few beers together and got chatting. He's like, I'm going climbing on Mount Tongariro next week. I was like, oh, can I come? So that was the kind of first intro. So there we were, Tongariro National Park, walked up past the Mangatapopo hut, right up to South Crater, and we climbed Mount Tongariro. And again, that was just a phenomenal experience for me, standing on top of Mount Tongariro. It's no Mount Everest, right? But for me, Mount Ruapehu was right there, caked in snow, Ruapehu just over there, and far out, just gave me such a confidence boost, and I just fell in love with it. And we backed off the mountain and then pitched our tent in the South Crater, very close to the Tongariro crossing, and woke up the next day and she was bucketing with snow, and I mean really bucketing, and it was blowing, and we thought, far out, we better do the right thing and stay put. So I think we spent the next 2 nights together in this wee tent, and it was just bucketing with snow, and our footwear disappeared, our bag disappeared, and we were having a great old time, kind of cooking up a feed in the tent, and we'd get geared up and go out and have a look around, come back again. And I think the third day we're like, oh, probably should get out of here, I think it's settled a wee bit. So we kind of followed pole to pole and headed off back down the mountain and made it. And that was the first of many trips with Cam and I. But from there, I became hooked on mountaineering. I thought this is the business. So I did a course with Cam. I think it was a right thing to do with Hillary Outdoors, and just got those kind of basic snowcraft skills kind of down packed. And then just spent an enormous amount of time just climbing on Mount Ruapehu, just doing some stuff with ropes and anchors and more kind of complex stuff, and some just wandering around with an ice axe and crampons. And I guess, fast forward into, teachers college, and James and I met. Actually, the story kind of goes is that turning up to teachers college, I was late on my first day, and I had my jandals and my stubbies, and I think it was a white singlet or something, and I kind of burst in through the doorway, and in front of me was 29 women. I thought, it's a good start. And then James was at the back, the only bloke in my class, and I was a bit shy. I didn't want to sit next to the girls, and wandered on to the back, and I started kind of hit it off with James. And we did heaps of tramping trips over the years together. And I'd kind of said to him, mate, like, you haven't been mountaineering before. I've got a bit under my belt. I'd love to show you the ropes, and we're going to have a great old time. So me being me, I wasn't like, oh, let's just go and climb Mount Tongariro or something. I was like, mate, you're good for this. Let's go and climb Mount Ruapehu, and then we'll head on down and climb Ngātahoe, and then Tongariro as well. And that'll be like a 6 or 7 day trip. And thankfully he was up for it, right? So
just pause there. What's the difference between tramping and mountaineering for those that aren't in the situation?
I suppose there's a lot of different terms for tramping, bushwalking, hiking, same thing, right? In my opinion, tramping, hiking, bushwalking is kind of, throw a backpack on and go for a walk in the bush. Right, you're below the snow line. Whereas for me, mountaineering, you're above the snow line. You're going to have some extra gear, probably an ice axe, crampons, helmet, something like that. And you've got to have those kind of basic, snowcraft skills to travel kind of safely. So for me, that was mountaineering. And we didn't have any ropes or any really technical gear like that. So I said to him, look, we'll beg and borrow some gear, and we'll finish the last of our assignments off, and we'll head down to Mount Ruapehu. And that's what we ddid. Started off with a bit of humour. I fell asleep on the drive down, and he missed a turn, and we're almost at Mount Taranaki in Egmont. So I said, doesn't look right, mate. You better turn around. So anyway, head back to Whakapapa, and we check in at the dock centre. And back in the day there, you'd write your intentions down and say, this is what we're going to do and where we're going to go, and you check in the forecast and look good as gold. So we hitched a ride, left our car at the bottom, hitched a ride up to the top of the Bruce. And from there, we slung our backpacks on over our shoulders and headed up under the chairlifts. And we stopped outside the Ruapehu Alpine Club hut. Sits at about 2,000 metres, quite close to the cafe up the top. And we noticed there was a big old snow cave, big hole in the ground, and we were going to dig one, right? So anyway, we stuck our head in, and if my memory serves me right, I think it was St. Kit's. We're doing a snowcraft course, so we said g'day, and they said, oh, do you want to come on in and, do you want some dinner, and do you want to sleep in here too? I thought, that's great, So we had some tacos for dinner, and kind of said g'day to the kids, and this snow cave was huge. I'm talking like Like it was rooms of rooms. Like it was really phenomenal. And I had a great sleep and kind of woke up in the morning. And then we headed over to the Ruapehu Alpine Club hut, and in there was some of our mates from uni that were doing a PE kind of degree. So we had a bit of a yarn with them, and he told them what we were up to, and they said, "Oh, sounds amazing," you know. So we said, "Yeah, I'll see you next week." So off we went up the Ruapehu. It was this beautiful bluebird day, really nice and quite hot. Kind of, I guess, coming into spring, and we ended up getting towards the dome, or close to the dome shelter, which is near the summit, and I was struggling to find the hut. I thought, far out, man. I said, maybe my map skills are off here, but I had my topo map, my compass, and I was looking at all the features thinking, we're going to be right on it. And sure enough, we pretty much were, but this thing was completely encrusted in ice. It was just phenomenal. And so this little A-frame of this hut sticking out over 2,500 metres above sea level, and it's a sight to behold in winter. So I said, oh, well, we better start digging. So we pulled our shovel off our backpack and dig this doorway out, and then slide down into the hut. Like, it was pretty cool after we'd done the job. And I remember James being pretty cold. I had, I think, a better down jacket on or something, whatever it was, maybe a bit more fat on me, you know. And I was like, well, I'll go and cook dinner. So I went outside and kind of cut this little platform on the side of the hut, not into the wood, but into the ice, right? And just was brewing up some dinner. I think it was just pasta. And I remember just kind of just looking around and just thinking, wow, look where we are. You know, we're like on top of this bloody mountain. I can see the summit plateau, which extends for over 1.5 k's. They've got these little peaks and that around. A bit higher, I could have seen Mount Taranaki Edmond. I could see the summit of Mount Ruapehu. It was, and I couldn't quite see the lake from there just because of the features. But it was phenomenal. Head back in and have a chat with James. We scoff our dinner, and we're like, oh well, it's time to kind of settle in for the night, I suppose. And I was exchanging a few messages with Cam, because he was going to come down and we're going to do this back-to-back trip. Like, he's going to come down to a couple of days climbing. I was like, 6 or 7 days plus an extra few, it's going to be good, right? And he gave us some weather forecasts, and they were primo. So I said to James, well, I actually negotiated with James because he was like, oh, I don't want to get up that early. But I was like, let's get up at 4. We're going to get some tucker in us, and we're going to get up on top of Mount Ruapehu, like, for the sunrise. And I couldn't think anything better than that. So we got to sleep. Well, I should say, James got to sleep, and he was snoring like a chainsaw, like real cutting down trees type of thing. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and I'm trying to get to sleep, but I was so excited about the next day, and yeah, he's snoring beside me. And I hear this rumble outside of the building. I was like, oh, it's a bit weird, avalanche or something. And within a second or two, the doorway for the dome shadow, which was, if I was lying along here, it was just beyond my feet. This door just smashed open and probably lost a few bits of wood off the door. So I jumped up onto my knees. It was pitch black. I was cozy warm, if you can imagine that. And so I skidded across the floor and just grabbed the door frame to look outside. And in front of me, I could see Mount Ruapehu erupting. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It just looked like a sky full of rocks and even like little bumblebees, and everything was just blasting, and it took a second to really register what the hell was actually going on. And before I knew it, this debris was then, I guess, coming down on top of not just us but the entire mountaintop. I'm told it was equivalent to 1.5 million cubic meters of mud, rock and water, right? And from where I was, I just got smashed into the wall. It was probably just here, just behind me. And in an instant, I could feel this greater force than I was ever used to, like pushing me around, and I couldn't fight it off. And I could feel my legs breaking. I'd feel bones like crunching. I could feel my flesh just kind of being torn at. I was screaming, and it sounded like this bloody jet plane was taken off outside. And then in came an enormous amount of water. So for 30 seconds maybe, I and James at this point, still asleep probably, was submerged. And I was going through my head, I'm like, mountaineering? Now I'm drowning? Like, what's going on? It just didn't stack up. But because of all the debris that came in, it had crushed through the floorboards, that water escaped, as quickly as it kind of came in. And I was left sitting, in an enormous amount of pain, and everything was just silent. And I always joke that was when James woke up, right? So I said, help, mate. I think it's been an eruption. Like, we need to get out of here. Like, my legs are stuck. So
Are you screaming there? Help, mate. Like, you're in pain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's just so much going through my head at the same time, you know.
Sorry, how long was the duration of that, what you've just described? Is that an instant? Is that minutes?
Well, I think from when the door blew open to debris coming into the hut could have been, 5 to 10 seconds. And then I reckon I was pummeled for about 30 seconds. So it happened in the flash of an eye. And said, I think James was awake. I said, come on over, mate. We need to get out of here. And he kind of tiptoes over. And I mean, let's not forget, we'd just been in our sleeping bags, like warm and cozy. He was asleep. We had no gear on. So he literally came across in his underwear, walking across broken bits of rocks and snow and ice. Like, big deal, right? And I was like, let's dig. So he starts frantically digging around my legs. I'm doing the same thing, and we were getting nowhere, and our hands just became useless bits of meat, right? Digging through, clawing through volcanic rock, ice and snow. It was fruitless. So I said, I don't know. We decided, let's have a go with the the snow shovels and the ice axes. And I remember James was swinging with all his might, and sparks were flicking off the end of the ice axe and the rocks. And after a while, I wasn't going anywhere. So he said, well, let me see if I can feel down around your leg, and we'll try and see if I can get you free. I said, it's a great idea. So he gets his hand and kind of puts it down, I guess, hard up against my leg and into the rocks and that. And at one point, like, he sent me through the roof. It was just an enormous amount of pain. And he pulls his hand out, and it's covered in blood. And we later worked out he was hauling on one of my bones that was sticking outside of my leg. So we had this just unbelievable conversation on, like, mate, what are we going to do? And we decided that he needed to run down the mountain to save his life and maybe mine. In amongst all that happening, I was saying to him, hold on a second, mate, I think I'm gonna pass out here. Like, I'm seeing stars. And he said, no, you're not. And he gave me this almighty smack across the face. And truth be told, it brought me round. I thought, far out. Okay. And then he said, I'm going to get some clothes on. So he came back a minute or two later, and he's like, I can't find a lot of clothes because everything's buried. He said, I've got my boots on, no socks, my blue undies, and I've just nicked your new Gore-Tex jacket off the hook. I thought, my new Gore-Tex jacket. And he's like, all right, I'm out of here. And he stood outside, and I remember him spinning around and saying to me, William, he's like, mate, you're not going to believe what it looks like out here. And it had completely changed, more like a moonscape than a mountainscape. There was not a bit of white snow that he could see, or I could see. It was just mud and like his stuff out of the Crater Lake, which had erupted on us.
How big are we talking? Some of those rocks that came down into the dome shelter that had pinned you, like boulders,
small boulders, probably like the size of a 15-litre bucket or something, like an extra big bucket, something like that, in amongst a lot of small debris. But it was coming in hot, and it was wet, and it was heavy. Fortunately, it wasn't hot in temperature, right? We've had the White Island incident recently, and that was a different but similar kettle of fish. I was fortunate that it was just spa-pool temperature water, actually. I kind of got doused. It was right to begin with.
Quite pleasant.
But yeah, it's great. And quite acidic. Whereas, unfortunately, for those people that got caught on the White Island one, it was very much hot. So James and I, have realised that, I'm just backtracking here. You did that bit out, mate. But he's outside. He's worked out that it's very different out there. And then he says to me, all right, where do I go? I thought, far out. But, put yourself in his shoes. How does any person, right? You've just been through a volcanic eruption. He didn't have all the right gear on because a lot of it was buried. He was terrified, as I was. How do you build up that courage and that confidence to leave what really was the relative safety? And somehow he did, and he was like, right, I'm out of here. And I said, okay. And I really meant this. I said, mate, can you please tell my friends and my family that I love them? I couldn't believe I was saying it. And, James being James, he said, no, mate, you can tell him yourself. And off he went. And it was eerie. It was very movie-like, and I just couldn't believe the situation I was in. So there was this bitterly wind bitterly cold wind coming in through the doorway. It was -8 degrees that night, I was told later on. And as soon as he'd left, I was looking at my watch and I was like, okay, it's 9 o'clock. So it was about half an hour after the eruption that he had left, maybe sooner. And I thought, well, my plan is I've got to stay awake because I know that hypothermia is going to get me. My next thought went through my head was, can I somehow get free? So I was pulling on my leg as hard as I could, but every time I yanked on it, the bones would pull apart inside of the leg and then kind of crunch back together again, and never sitting quite the same way. At some point, actually, maybe James actually put a sleeping bag over the top of me. Let's not forget everything was wet, along with our 2 cell phones, which we had thrown into the corner in anger because they were just vibrating constantly. And after I realized that I wasn't getting out of there, I thought, could I somehow cut my leg off? Like, was there anything in here that I could use? I didn't have a pocket knife within reach. There was an ice axe, a bit of a brutal way to take a leg off. So that wasn't really a go.
Has 127 Hours come out in the theatre by that stage?
Yeah, I'd read the book beforehand. So perhaps that was what went through my mind at the same time, right? So I realised after a while that I was firmly stuck, and I was doing some maths. No, I've never been great at maths. And I thought, well, if it could take the rescuers, I thought 10 hours to get out to me. I thought, okay. And I did some more maths thinking, far out. I reckon I've only got like max 5 hours left to live. So I was like, I'm gonna die here. And they say your life flashes before your eyes. I'll tell you what it does. And those childhood memories kind of flash through friends and family. And I wasn't emotional about it, but it was just like, that was my life, and I think it's going to end here. And it wasn't at that point that I decided to give up or anything, but it kind of was what it was. And I was just like, it's a bit of a rough deal, but I'm not going to go out without a fight. So I tried to stay awake for as long as I could, but hypothermia, it won, and it had me in its grips, and I just began to drift off to sleep consciously and not consciously knowing that was happening. And it was lights out.
Before it went lights out, like this rock that's crushed your leg, like, are you in just like, what's the pain threshold that you're dealing with? Like, are you just in shock that you can't actually, it's so painful that you can't feel it anymore?
Yeah, the body's a great thing when it comes to, I guess, extreme pain, and it was sore, right? I'm not going to deny that. It was terribly uncomfortable, but it wasn't unmanageable. Sounds bizarre, doesn't it?
Mm.
I also had a broken patella that I didn't know at the time. So I would stretch my leg out, and then it would snap out, and then I'd bring it back in, and it would snap back in.
This is your other leg.
This is my other leg.
This is your left leg.
This is my left leg. We actually got that free after a while. And but the right leg, I couldn't obviously see the leg. I couldn't determine exactly how much damage had been done, but I couldn't anymore move my foot or flex those muscles. So I knew something wasn't quite right. But I thought at the end of the day, it's just probably a broken leg, and we'll just get it kind of mended up, and she'll kind of be right.
You've told this story a lot during public speaking. I can see like there's still emotion every time you go back there. When you think back to this period just before you pass out, where you think I'm going to die, is it hard? Like, do you go right back into that space, and is it really clear what you were thinking, or is it sort of like trauma that you sort of push down?
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's a great question. So when I hop on the stage and I tell my story, which I do often, and I really enjoy doing it, for the Ruapehu section, I almost say to myself, you're getting into acting mode here, and you're going to tell it exactly as it was, but you're not going to become emotionally affected by it. Because I think if I couldn't get myself into that acting mindset, just for the Ruapehu part, I think it would do some damage over the long term. So I'm telling the story here, and I'm saying it as it was, and I'm going into more detail than I usually do. And it's I don't know. I'm in a weird way. It's nice to do. It's recounting. It's revisiting. So it was enormously tough.
It's incredible clarity of thought in a catastrophic situation to be so present about, and matter of fact around doing calculations and recounting. And in your book you talk about thinking about all the things that you might not get the opportunity to do. Again, I'm fascinated by the time period of how long that process is of like sitting with fuck. Like that's all I can think of is sitting with like fuck.
This is it.
Yeah. Because of the hypothermia, I think my time frames are all, squished, and it's very hard to put a time on how long I was conscious for. But, those key thoughts going through my head in that time when I was trapped and realizing that, yes, I was going to die was like, oh, far out. There's so many things I want to do. I want to go on more adventures. I want to have a family. I want to be an awesome teacher. I want to go on more adventures, right? And I was gutted in a way that was taken away from me. What was also top of mind was, far out, what are my friends and family going to think when they heard that I died, That for me really kind of hit home and twisted my guts. But again, and I don't say this with pride, it wasn't as though I was sitting there and I was crying about it. As you say, for some reason, I was just very matter of fact about it. And I seem to have this ability in the outdoors, if things kind of go pear-shaped or you're in a bit of a tight situation or on the side of a mountain, to actually keep quite cool, calm, and collected, where in other aspects of my life that's missing, right? So it's just perhaps a unique skill that I've got.
Had you? Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
But had you ever, in your planning for something like this, had plan absolute disaster might come into play, so you had some tools that you were able to pull into?
I don't know if I had any mental tools. Perhaps what I think I had was just an accumulation of many, many days or probably weeks and weeks of tramping and doing more and more mountaineering, push myself outside my comfort zone and developing that muscle for what it's like in those situations and being able to kind of cope with that. I had also done a lot of first aid courses, so I kind of knew what I was getting into in terms of sitting there in the dome shout and knowing that this is not good. So I could process all of that. But yeah, above all, there was just a desire to somehow get through this and somehow live no matter what it took, and to do my darndest to stay focused.
So this is a really fascinating part of the book, because you basically check out at this point, and it's told by all of the characters who we're about to meet. I'm particularly interested in James's story from here, because we've just sent him off and he's gone and you're sort of passed out and we won't meet you for another couple of weeks. But after talking to James, tell us about his mindset of what he was thinking.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked about James. It's something I wanted to kind of touch on. So, for him, and just backtracking a tiny bit, that was a ballsy decision to run down that mountain. He didn't have the gear. He didn't really know where he was. He didn't know where he was going. And a lot of people that run off the top of that mountain in the middle of the night end up in a place called no man's land, which is full of kind of cliffs, and they end up going in the bush and just kind of succumbing. So for him, it was a big deal. After he left the dome shelter, he followed for a way the Whakapapa Glacier, which kind of curves its way down a wee bit. And then he could see a lot of ski tracks and thought, I'll follow them for a while. And after a bit more time, maybe half an hour or so of running and sliding, he didn't have any crampons on his feet. It was very icy in the middle of the night. It was a huge feat, right? He could see this little light in the distance, and he thought, right, I'm going for it. And he barreled towards this light with his headlamp on his head. And the light was a snow groomer. And inside of the snow groomer was Shane Buckingham. And Shane Buckingham is a long-time Ruapehu Alpine rescue member, but also does a lot of work on the mountain with the snow groomers. And he had just narrowly missed the laha coming down the mountain. He'd been grooming the mountain in his groomer, probably with his heater on and his music blaring, and out of the corner of an eye saw this bloody great laha coming down. Jams it into reverse, blasts up the hill, kind of stops, get on the radio, and he's like, far out, I think the mountain's just erupted, back to kind of base, etc. And I believe they said, we'll just camp out for a second, just, we'll give you some instructions. And then he sees this little light, kind of dancing toward him, and he's getting closer and closer. And lo and behold, James turns up, opens the door, jumps in, turns the heater on, and turns it up, and explains what had happened. And I don't know exactly what was kind of discussed in that, but I believe it was around the lines of, well, my mate's trapped. Can we go and get him? What can we do? And so this was James really started the ball rolling for an enormous series of events, which, in my opinion, were incredibly successful. I should add that James was later awarded the New Zealand Bravery Medal for his efforts. James and I still, they got me. Yeah, James and I are still really good friends today. But going back to the snow groomer, I believe there was some lighthearted discussions on girlfriends, the rugby that was happening at the time, and of course James really wanted to get back to the dome shelter to see me, but they said, no, buddy, you're out of here, right? So they got him down to the Whakapapa village and they sent him into the chateau, right, for a kind of 5-star accommodation.
Hopefully not one of the haunted rooms.
For the night. I don't know. You probably wouldn't have cared. And, I've sometimes joked about that and I sometimes mention it when I'm speaking and, it gets a good laugh, but in all reality, it was a shitty night for him. Right, he was in the room by himself, wondering what the hell had happened to his mate, and he was all alone. And he had the tough job of ringing up his parents. And the story goes that he rang his home number in the middle of the night, and I believe his mum picked up. He said, "Hi, Mum, is Dad there, please?" so he then starts to explain what had happened, right? And there's obviously a story that kind of continues from there. But I guess from then on in, this rescue crew was assembled from the Ruapehu Alpine Rescue Organisation. My understanding is they're all down at the National Park pub, having a few beers and pizza, saying goodbye to one of the workers that had been there for a while and was heading overseas. And they get a call through saying, the mountain just erupted and there's a bloke in the dome shelter with his legs squashed. Can you go and get him? And they thought this is a joke.
It's a wind up.
It's a wind up, right? So anyway, my assumption would be that they kind of piled into cars, and headed up the mountain. I don't know, a few beers deep. I don't know, right? But they had a job to do. And they sent 2 groomers from Whakapapa up to get me. And I understand that one of them blew a turbine on the way up. So they all plonked into this other one. There was 8 of them, 8 very brave men and women that really did put their lives on the line for just my life, with the threat of another eruption. So
how real is the threat that it erupts again and soon after?
I can't recall exactly the threat, but my understanding was that they were advised by GNS to say, look, this could erupt again. It's kind of on your own back if you do choose to go up there.
Because there was no advance warning that this was going to happen, right? That's part of the craziness of the whole situation.
Yes, absolutely, right. So it was called a blue sky eruption. So there was no warnings. There was no GNS saying don't go up. There were thousands of people on the mountain that day. There really was no warning. So for these rescuers barreling up this mountain in the middle of the night, and they turn up, and it's the most bizarre of situations. They say, that's just the ground's completely black, and they come into the dome shelter and see it's all kind of busted and broken on the outside. And they come in to find me unconscious and looking very blue and very pale. Unconscious and very blue and grey, just not a good colour, right? Didn't know if I was breathing or not. And they ended up getting me out, I believe, just by being strong, lucid, probably some shovels to not just pry one rock off, but there was multiple rocks. It was like a cement had kind of sealed around the leg and amongst rocks, etc., and probably settled and frozen actually, right? So after a while, they got me free, and
I'm just going to jump in. I'm going to tell your story for you, because this is a passage in the book that I was like, I really want to sort of make this clear, and I think it comes in now. So this is in the words of one of these guys that found you. He said, as soon as my light fell on him, William collapsed onto his side, and there was a bit of a phenomenon of people in need of rescue managing to hold themselves together against all odds, but when the rescue team arrive, they relax and inadvertently succumb to the elements and perish. Mm-hmm. I feared the worst for William. So you've held yourself together. Is that right? Or
well, yeah, according to that it is, and I don't have recollection of that
of course.
Because I was just, I was combed out. I was in a better place. So, that is 100% correct. And after digging me out, I believe they took my body temperature, which read 25 degrees Celsius. And anyone knows that, 37 is the norm. And I think anything below 28 is like cardiac arrest material. And then you start to have issues around, no defibs or drugs or things are going to work to kind of restart a heart when it's that bloody cold. So they had a really delicate situation to get me off that mountain on the back of a snow groomer. And I've been on a snow groomer since a couple of times, and I can tell you it's not a smooth ride, right? So they rocketed down this mountain and got me to the top of the Bruce where an ambulance was waiting. They took me down to the Chateau Tongadero, and I excuse me, coughs all around.
Yeah.
I believe at the Tongadero Chateau, staff came out. They were warming bags of kind of saline solution and microwaves and towels and all sorts, and it was a team effort, right? You know, there's a photograph kicking around somewhere. You've got One News or whoever it was, media poking their camera in. You've got fire department, you've got police, you've got St. John, you've got my arm kind of hanging out of the stretcher, and that was the, I guess, bit of a kind of checkpoint Charlie, let's say, before getting me down to National Park, and from.
Well, okay, one last interruption, and then I'm going to let you tell your story. Because again, these are not your words, so I'm going to fill in from the viewpoint of others. Yeah. As dramatic as this may sound, I was fairly certain that he would not survive the ride down the mountain. He had no pulse at all. I tried rousing him by pinching him hard. I took his temperature in his ear and it read 25 degrees. Normal temperature is 37. His flesh was waxy and lifeless. When a person is dead, their pupils become fixed and dilated. William's pupils were fixed and dilated. This was not good at all. Essentially as close to death as one can come, right?
That's right. I was a bloody battler, mate. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I have no recollection of it, so it's great to have these little extracts just to paint the picture.
How soon after the incident did those extracts come to you, those retellings in the third person?
It was a while. It would have been once I'd got home after hospital and I was beginning to put together the book, and I thought, well, there's a long period here where I was out for the count, so it would be good to get some detailed accounts of that. So I'm forever grateful, and maybe we'll talk about it a bit later, but a lot of these people that have given extracts, I'm still kind of in contact today, which is, for me, is really, really special. Tamanui Hospital, I hear again, especially through Dr. John Bonning, who was on the chopper the ambulance that came from Waikato, said it was the most bizarre scene to walk into in the ED room, stinking of sulphur with duck feathers everywhere, which had been cut. Obviously, my down jacket had been cut and they were kind of spread all over the floor. And I believe I was stabilised and then whacked in the back of another helicopter and then taken up to Waikato Hospital, where I arrived in the very early hours of the morning. My mum, dad and brother were waiting there for me. They'd got the news in the early hours of the night by a policeman who was actually a childhood friend knocking on the door and said, this is not good news. You guys need to pack your bags and get down to Waikato straight away. So I can't imagine they stuck to the speed limit on the way down. Dad's Holden Commodore wagon that he had back then. But for them, I can imagine it would be an incredibly traumatic time. They were given access to me to kind of say hi, even though I wasn't responsive, right? Kind of touch me and try and warm me and just kind of be part of that process as I was being stabilised. And Dr. John Bonning saying to them, like, this guy is by no means out of the woods right here. So it was very, very touch and go. And really, I guess the next part of the story for me is waking up. And I remember waking up by seeing kind of these bright lights, and I could hear machines pumping and beeping. I could then see doctors, nurses. I thought, you beauty, right? Like, I'm alive. Yeah. How good's this? Admittedly, I was wasted on morphine and ketamine, right? And didn't really know what day of the week it was or who I really was or where I was. But I didn't expect to wake up. So this was a real treat. It was phenomenal. But as time went on, I realised I was one lucky kid. Even in those first few weeks, I was like, wow, I've got my other leg. Don't have any internal injuries, or my head's okay. So I instantly was incredibly grateful for coming out somewhat unscathed, And I guess from there though, it wasn't all rosy, right, either, because looking down, I'm missing my leg, and I had all these thoughts kind of spinning through my head, like, can I actually walk again? Is this always going to hurt? How am I going to go on adventures? Am I going to get a girlfriend? But at the same time, I had all these things I wanted to do. I was like, I'm 22. like, I want to do so much more hiking and mountaineering. I've got a teaching career ahead of me. I've got my life ahead of me. And a key story that has really stuck with me, or I should say conversation, was a nurse that came in, and let's not forget I was pretty wasted in those first month or two in hospital. I believe it was Cynthia. And Cynthia and I were chatting away, and she was changing my dressings. And she said, you've got a bit of a choice here, William. I was like, oh yeah, go on. And she said, you can go back to being the old William Pike. You can go and enjoy your outdoor stuff, and you can
loose unit.
Be a loose unit.
Keep sharing those email threads that you used to send back in the day.
Yeah, man, you got it. We know. So she said, William, you can go back to being loose unit, go back to your teaching, and go back to doing outdoors, or you might find a bit of an opportunity here. You can, twist and turn and make an opportunity out of this, or go on an adventure. And I was like, oh, adventure, that sounds pretty good, And that sat with me for a while in hospital. And I remember in amongst that really turbulent time getting some really harsh feedback from a particular plastic surgeon on, look, I don't think you're going to be able to do the things you used to do, and I can probably walk properly, and you've got not a lot of stump left. We have to graft, like, in my opinion, buddy, things aren't great. So it was very tough, but that as word of Cynthia sat in back of my mind, and there came a day when I was just going to finish my baked beans for breakfast, and I might have just spewed them up actually. And I thought, I'm 22. There's no way in hell I'm going to waste a second chance of my life. I'm absolutely going to rebuild this with a vengeance. Who knows where it's going to go, but I've got to do this. And I'm no rocket scientist, right? And I was like, well, if I can just set myself some goals, I want to learn to walk, I want to get back into the classroom, and I want to get back to the dome shelter. Was my kind of three things that I set myself. And that was, I suppose, my way of beginning to rebuild my life, to perhaps restarting that kind of adventure that I had gone on. But at the same time, that sounds all like, oh, inspirational. At the same time, I didn't know if I could do it either. I was sitting there, I was full of fear, I was full of doubt. I didn't know if I could actually do it. The hardest tragedy, actually, I'll jump into something else before that. I also remember a psychologist coming in to the hospital and sitting down and let's have a chat. So we had a big old chat. How you feeling? I was pretty good. What do you worry about things? Not really. And it's something that stuck with me since then, because people often say, what's that? There's been a physical journey, but what's the mental health journey been like, right? And I've thought long and hard over this over the past 10 years, right? And I don't say this with pride at all, but I was fortunate then and now not to suffer any big mental health challenges along the way. But I do believe what was significant in my time in that hospital period and that transition from hospital to home, which was very, very hard, was just having my mates around me and my family just constantly. My mum came into hospital and slept with me on the bloody floor pretty much every single night, which is
Yeah, I had this conversation with Nick, your mate, who in the lead up to this, because reading in your book, it said there was like 20 friends came through the hospital when you were there. And I'd say, I don't know any of my friends that could get 20 people to come and visit them. Like, it speaks.
I don't know. I reckon.
I was Seamus aside. I reckon I'd go okay. But yeah, it speaks to what they thought of you, and like you say,
they were coming down by the bloody busload. It was great, but to have that level of support and just like friends in there all the time. James was in on the floor a couple of times. Recounting the event. It was, it was really special, and having those people around me was absolutely key. But also, I was so fortunate that I had found the things that I was really passionate about. I loved the outdoors, and I just so badly wanted to get back into it. I love my job as a teacher, and I felt like I just had kind of so much to look forward to. So I think it was having those passions and those things that I was just so passionate about that really gave me the courage and the confidence to, let's rebuild this, and absolutely we can go forward, whatever that may kind of look like.
There was that one negative voice that you've spoken about in your book, but for the vast majority, was it positive encouragement of yes, you can, and yes, you will, and one day we will?
Oh, of course it is. I think everyone likes to give you this this positive encouragement, to paint a nice, bright future that things are going to be okay. But it's not until you get home and that's disappeared and everything's settled down and your friends are back at their day job and you think, holy shit, this is up to me. There was no one else that was going to do it. So that realization of getting home was, it was all up to me, and it was tough. I was throwing my toys. I was pretty upset. I was angry every now and then. Like it was very, very hard. But I guess I'd set myself those goals, and I was determined to kind of work towards them. And I had great fun filling in time. After my accident, I remember my mate Dan Grant. He's a great guy. He would pick me up and chuck my wheelchair in the back of the car. He's a big skateboarder, and would go and find these empty parking lots in the downtown. And he would zoom down on a skateboard, and I'd zoom down on my wheelchair, and we had a great old time. That was pretty cool. And one of my my first trip actually back into the proper one into the outdoors was to get to Cape Brett. And obviously there's a fantastic walk that goes to Cape Brett, but I sure as hell wasn't going to be walking it. But I thought, I've got to get a kayak. Kayak's going to be great. I can sit on my bum, I can paddle, and I can get to where I need to get to. So I really got into kayaking kind of straight away after my accident. It was my therapy, to get back into the outdoors, which was a real treat.
Talking of therapy, why was it important for you to go back to the dome shelter? Was that was that a sense of
absolutely?
closure?
I think there's lots to do with that goal of going back to dome shelter. It was probably closure. It was let's go full circle, and it was I don't want you to beat me as well. And most importantly, me saying to myself, I did it. I got back there. That was what I think I wanted to get out of by setting that goal. So, first goal though, teaching. I applied for a few jobs, and they're like, no, don't think you're ready for this, which was, a bit demoralising.
Was that a duty of care from their perspective?
It could have been. I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, it was a while ago. But I didn't let that deter me. And I was fortunate to get a job at Murray's Bay Primary School, which wasn't too far away from where I was living. And it was 3 months after the accident that I turned up on my first day. And the job was for 1 day a week, right? So just really easing into it. And I turned up legless, like not this legless, but no leg, right? And I was on my crutches. It was February. I was sweating, and I had my laptop bag over my shoulder. It kept kind of falling off my shoulder. I was crashing. It was a bloody nightmare. Into the staff room. Hey guys, our new legless colleague, and then into the classroom. And I think before that accident, I would have lost a bit of pride in terms of putting my hand up and asking for help. But I learnt probably the true meaning of teamwork and putting hand up and asking for help when you really need it. And my colleagues were great. They'd put the PE gear out for me, or they'd sub in and out for water wires if I couldn't do that, and they were really, really helpful. It was really cool. The student side of thing, as you can imagine, as teacher turning up with one leg on crutches must have been mind-boggling for them, right?
Was there a bit of profile though? Like it had been in the news, or was it kind of like a flash?
No, it had. Yeah, it definitely been in the news. All the big newspapers picked it up, and TV channels. And I'd done a couple of interviews and that as well. So it was definitely a story back then. I wasn't front page kind of A-list celeb, if you know what I mean. More so kind of Z grade, but. The kids probably didn't pick up on that, but it was more so, this guy's a little bit different here, and I decided to have some fun with it. And I was never, don't ask me questions about it. It's like, what do you want to know, right? Let's have a look at the stump, or I can tell you my story. And eventually, right, I did get a prosthetic leg, and I thought, I've got to have some fun with this, So on a Monday morning, I'd get the kids to pile into class, of course, and on my responsibility roster, I had added a new job, lunches, library books, leg cleaner. So these prosthetic legs, they collect a bit of dust and dirt. So I'd have a leg cleaner, and I'd have a student that would pull my leg off. They would get a Chuck's cloth out that I had in the corner of the classroom, and they would just kind of take the foot shell off to get into amongst the carbon bits and clean it out and put it back on again. Yeah. Great fun. So look, my teaching, my transition back into teaching was great. It was something that I'd done before my accident. It was going full circle. I'm back there, and also knew it was a job because I had a great friend, I still have a great friend, Laura, and her mum's in a wheelchair and she's a teacher. And I thought, I can do this job no matter what. She can do it, right? So it was nice going back into that kind of job security. And really my main motivation for going into teaching was to share my passion for the great outdoors. Holidays look good too, right? But that's really what I wanted to kind of do. And I remember watching the students come in the doorway on a early one morning and that first period. And I was reflecting, because I'm quite a reflective guy, and I was thinking to myself, have these young people got the similar opportunities that I had as a youngster? Getting in amongst the outdoors properly. Are they like being part of the community? Are they just trying new stuff and having opportunities? And I wasn't convinced. So I had this wild vision, I suppose it was, and I thought, how cool would it be to get these kids doing that? And I kept teaching, and I was loving it. But I had my radar up. I had this kind of this vision, but no idea how to get there. And I ended up connecting with a school, Hilltop School. One of you in Hilltop School? A parent, Paul Dawson, rang me out of the blue. He said, "Hey mate, I've seen you in the news and you've had a bit of an accident and you're a teacher and I'm on the board of the school and we've got a bit of an idea and I just want to have a bit of a chat." And I was like, actually, I've got an idea too. I really want to give this opportunity to young people. So we collaborated. And it was a year of backwards and forwards and emails, and they came to see me speak at an all-women's event once, which was pretty funny. A bunch of blokes setting up to watch me speak. And at the end of the year, they said, "I quite like this. Can we call it the William Pike Challenge?" And I said, no, don't be silly. Surely you can find something better than that, right? But they twisted my arm, and this William Pike Challenge was born. I thought, oh, it's cool. So I kept teaching, and I went down to school and joined a few activities. One of the activities that I did with them was actually quite some years later, was let's go to the dome shelter. So on that particular trip, I remember James came along. I couldn't have not done it with him, right? And it was such a phenomenal kind of atmosphere of these kids here. I was probably the only school in New Zealand at the time that were doing the William Pike Challenge. It's weird to got my name against it. I was feeling pretty good for this kind of climb, and off we went. We kind of had a crack at it, but on the first instance, we didn't get there. My leg was sore, it was uncomfortable. I was pretty gutted, right? So I just kind of hobbled back down, and it was demoralising in a way. But I was like, oh, we'll get there. Bit more work at the leg shop and things like that. But yeah, some years later, James and I went back again with Hilltop School and had another crack at it. And I remember it was summer, low cloud, bit average weather-wise, going into a improving forecast, of course. And we headed up that mountain, and after probably 6 or 7 or 8 hours, it was a bloody long time. Anyway, we got back there, and it really was this momentous occasion. It was no Mount Everest, but it didn't matter. I set myself that goal in hospital. We'd gone full circle. I actually gave him a great big hug in front of the dome shelter, and of course thanked him probably too many times for kind of saving my life. And to have the kids there and the school Hilltop doing the William Pike Challenge was incredibly special. I probably couldn't have asked for a more perfect situation in a way, being with my teaching hat on as well. It was really neat. We had a look around inside the dome shelter. At the time, they had fixed up the floor. They put plywood all over it. The walls where there was gaping holes in had been fixed up with perspex. It was like a museum. It was really quite neat. And there was this big rock sitting outside the doorstep, which you step up onto and get in. And legend has it amongst the tour guides that this rock crushed this guy in the dome shelter once.
Wow.
I think it may be one of the rocks, right? But it's quite a hard case.
What are the emotions when you first see it?
You beauty, I'm back. There was no fear of, oh man, I'm going to get blown up again. The chances of that, I thought, were really, really slim. But it was like exhilarating to see the lake again, to see the dome shelter, to be there with James, to have walked there on my own 2 legs as well, 1.5, I don't know, under my own steam, and not hopped off a helicopter or anything like that. It was, you can't get much better satisfaction than something like that. So it really was a special time.
Yeah, that's full circle. So the other full circle is that there are kids now. So this William Pike Challenge has gone through like 500 schools. I think it's 124 currently in 2024. But there are kids of the rescuers who are doing it. Have I got that right?
That's right. Yeah. So look, the Willing Pike Challenge, we're all about engaging educators, about inspiring young people to step outside of their comfort zones and kind of go into the world with confidence. And it's a year-long program. So these students, they do 5 outdoor activities. They do 20 hours of community service, and they do 20 hours of passion projects. So a passion project is a new sport, skill, or hobby. And look, it's all about stepping outside of their comfort zone and developing key skills so that they're kind of prepared to go on a life of unexpected challenge and change, right? Kind of exactly what I've kind of done. So yeah, we've got 124 and counting schools doing the Willing Pike Challenge this year, and words can't express how kind of just chuffed I am, with that amount of kids that are involved in the program.
Are they all expecting you to turn up? All of the
They probably do expect it, but I can't. So yeah.
Was that a challenge for you? Of challenge of scale? Like when something is named,
Yeah.
I guess after you.
Yeah.
I imagine you want to be at every opportunity that you possibly could.
And I remember I was chasing my then girlfriend, now wife at the time. She was about to head overseas, and I think I was lying in bed before I headed over, and I was reflecting because the challenge had just got going. There's, I think, 4 schools on at a time, and I was thinking, I was like, far out, like, is there going to be no point of return on this? Like, is this going to grow to something that could be quite significant, and what might that mean for me in the future? So, yeah, it was an interesting time in terms of it's beginning to kind of scale, but I wanted reach, and I wanted low touch, and I wanted to almost, teach teachers and for them to facilitate. Otherwise, I knew we could never replicate the scale of it, but with just me and my small team that I've got. So I think it was intentional around the way that it's been set up, and that, the schools run the Willing Pike Challenge. We license, they use our software, our online platform for tracking and managing. We give them the ideas, the inspiration, and be a bit of a connector as well. So yeah, like I'm stoked. We're 124 schools, and as you say, we're starting to see some things kind of go full circle, right? James Christie, his school's doing the Willing Pike Challenge, right? That's pretty cool. And then I had a Facebook message from Conrad, the copper, who was involved in the rescue down at National Park. And he says, hey, check this photo out. You wouldn't believe it. He said, this is Andy's son, and this is Callum's son, and this is my boy. They've just done the Willing Pike Challenge at National Park School. I thought, oh, mate, you've hit me right in the heart, like, wow, like how cool is that?
Yeah.
So it's really neat staying in touch with those guys. And in my last school holidays, or last year actually, last winter school holidays, I went down to Mount Ruapehu with my family, and we went for a few hikes, and as you do. And I was texting up Shane Buckingham, who's the snowcat driver, and I've met him multiple times since. But I said, hey, we're on Ruapehu. Do you want to catch up? So he said, yeah. So we met up for a coffee at the top cafe up there, and he turned up in his snow groom, and I was like, yeah, boy, we're going to get it right in this thing. And he was like, look, I'm sorry, like I can't pile you in front of all these people here. It's just not going to work. But it's been great catching up with you. Why don't you come back after hours and we'll see what we can do? So I thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. So went back and fed the kids up and rugged them up, and we came back and we bloody groomed Happy Valley with them. It was so cool. So I think I had Oliver with me. He was sitting in the front seat, and Shane's driving, and he's telling him what to do and push the odd button here and there. And then we swapped over, and Bex and Harriet got in and had a bit of a blast. Like, it's a cool thing to have to going full circle, and words can't describe how important that is to me, and how great that makes me feel.
Yeah, when some of those characters saw you for the first time after Ruapehu, what's that emotion like for them? Because I imagine... sorry.
No, it's okay. I think a lot of your ED workers, doctors, your EMS, emergency services, I can imagine they would come across people like me on a day-to-day basis, but only probably see 1% of them afterwards. So, yeah, I didn't feel it was an obligation to be in touch with those people afterwards, but I just thought it would be cool, because that was an enormous part of my life, and maybe a fraction of their life. But I knew that deep down, surely they would get some satisfaction and joy knowing that the great work that they do has saved a life, right? So they save many lives, right? Not just me, but also that some great things have come out of it.
this story that you've just told us has sort of defined you've got the William Pike challenge which built off it, but also telling your story and public speaking became a big part of your income and sort of how you made a living. Was that difficult, getting up and telling the story? Like, I imagine it is. It's incredibly well polished now. But to start with, how did you find approaching that?
Yeah, someone said to me, "Oh, do you want to do a presentation at a Rotary group?" I was like, give it a go. I'm a teacher. I can stand up in front of people. And in fact, for that first presentation down in Ngāti, I think I sat on a seat and told the story, right? But I was like, people kind of connected with that. And there's a couple of laughs and some people said that really kind of touched my heart. And I was like, okay, I'll give that a go. In the back of my mind was kind of Cynthia's voice, make go on an adventure with this. So I did more. I did more schools and I did voluntary ones and eventually, I guess, built up a story and a narrative and a kind of keynote that I could share, to corporates and businesses. And it's the public speaking thing is an interesting thing, right? Like I could never have pictured myself on a stage talking to sometimes thousands of people, right? I was not that type of person. But over the years, I guess I've developed confidence with it. I've kind of really got to understand who I am and what I'm about and my messaging, and that comes with 10 years of speaking plus. I think it doesn't just happen. And I'm sure there were days where in the early days, I don't know, this guy's any good, he's pretty average, but I get good feedback now, but it's taken a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of stuff ups, and a lot of confidence to kind of get back up on that pedestal and get going if things didn't quite go right. So it's not an easy gig, but it's something that I love because I connect with just a huge range of people. I travel. I enjoy it. It's a buzz. It's one of those things. It's like mountaineering. It's like spearfishing, motivational speaking. Once you get on that stage, like nothing else matters. Like you're in the 100% in the zone. Everything else about your worries have just disappeared, and you kind of go forward and tell the story. And yeah, I guess things I've been involved in for the last 15 years, well, probably all my life, work-wise, have really just been kind of helping people. It's the William Pike Challenge, it's speaking, that's what we're doing with Pro-Armour. It's just the way the way the cookie's crumbled, and I'm pleased that it's crumbled that way.
Does it get easier and easier over time, retelling or telling or standing up in front of a group of people?
What I always say to myself is you've got to tell the story like it's the first time you've told it, because these people sitting in front of you, they've never heard it before. And I never want to get to the stage where I'm just telling it half-assed. It's got to be 100%. It's got to have emotion. It's got to be conviction. And it's got to be like I was telling it the first time. So that does take, as you guys probably know, an enormous amount of energy. If you're getting out in the morning, you're having a bit of a shitty day for some reason, and you've got to front up and speak to 200 people from Fonterra, then you kind of got to be in a good headspace, So it does take a lot of time and to craft. It takes a lot of effort, but it's something that I'm incredibly grateful for to be able to have some fun with.
Yeah, it's incredibly compelling, but also what you have done since is, and you were building it. Like I feel like the story's kind of only half told. So sort of lockdown hits, and your main sources of income are speaking and the William Pike Challenge. Yeah. Schools are shut down. There's no events, and so take us to that place. And is that when you start building this new business, or had it already been in the pipelines?
Had been in the pipeline for quite some time, right? So one of the biggest challenges that I face as an amputee is getting sand, dust, dirt, debris into my foot shell, right? You can whack out one of these. Oh, actually, I can't tell you because I've got a Pro-Armour on. No, we'll come back to that soon. but in the foot shell is a bit of an open area, and it's got carbon. If you get sand and dust and water and debris, it starts to wear that down. Prosthetics are expensive. I don't like having to go to the leg shop if I don't have to, right? That takes a lot of time. So yeah, my feet were breaking down quite often, and hence going back to my leg cleaner. It was a real thing, right? My leg cleaner at school would clean this off. So after a while, I became pretty frustrated. I'd go to the beach, or I'd go for a bushwalk or something, and my leg would be full of debris. My prosthesis is like, naughty, you're breaking feet, you're costing the government money, like dial it down a bit. I was like, dialing it down. So I took my idea to a manufacturer, and I was like, hey man, I need you to make me this leg cover. Like, I think it's going to be primo. So he made me this leg cover, right? A neoprene kind of cover that stopped the dirt and crap getting into the foot. And I didn't think anything else of it. I was like, sweet, I just kind of go about doing my things, and I just put this leg cover on. But a few things fell into place around that kind of COVID time. I was in the leg shop and they were saying, your foot's real clean for all the stuff that you do. And what is that thing you've got there? I quite like it. I was like, yeah, it's my leg cover. And then at the same time, yes, COVID was happening, right? And the world was falling apart and I couldn't speak. The Willing Pike Challenge was a bit of unknown quantity. And I thought, what am I going to do? And I was also reading this book, and I've dug the quote out here because I can never remember exactly what it was, but will agree with you on. I'll say it again. What important truth do very few people agree with you on? And I let that percolate through my mind for quite some time, and probably in the shower, the penny dropped, and I was like, oh.
Was it the shower or was it the toilet? Because those are the two places where you do a lot of thinking.
do a lot of thinking, much to my wife's dislike, right? But I thought, yeah, my important truth that a lot of people don't agree with me on or don't even know about is this leg cover is actually doing wonders for me, and I reckon it could do wonders for other people as well. So I talked to a few people and I did some mathematics, and I thought we might have a wee business here. So I worked hard, long hours over COVID. And I was like, I've got to switch my focus here. I'm going to maintain Willing Pike Challenge, and it's going to tick over. I had great staff at the time. And I was like, I'm just going to go full noise into this. So I just kind of IP, set up a business, like manufacturers, costing, like everything was just like, I was just going full noise. And it was really fun and exciting at the same time. And I started having chats with New Zealand here, and they said, yeah, we'll take a couple of pallets, type of thing. And I thought, far out, this is pretty cool. And I received a lot of help from people, right? I do like to kind of credit people because I know I've never achieved anything great by myself, right? There was a lot of people that was kind of mentoring and helped out in those early stages and had good conversations with. And I think that's the beauty. One of the beauties about being a Kiwi is you can pretty much pick up the phone or dial someone across LinkedIn and be like, hey, you look like you're an expert in this space. I'm trying to do this. Can we have a coffee? And a lot of people said yes. So I'm incredibly grateful for that. And yeah, we started selling the Pro-Armour product in New Zealand. And kind of what it is, just so you guys can kind of see, is it's this neoprene cover, which has kind of been customized to go up over the prosthetic, some Velcro straps. And it does an incredible job of keeping that dirt, dust, debris out of prosthetic feet. And then I thought, well, New Zealand's buying some. Surely Aussie's got to buy some too. So I got my 16-year-old neighbour to dial up a spreadsheet for me of names and contacts and details. And I got on the blower and I'm ringing people. I'm like, hey, I'm from New Zealand.
Wow, old school hustling.
Yeah, old school hustling. And then I was like, you got to join me on a Zoom call as well. So there's 60 or 70 clinics over there. I would have had double that in terms of Zoom calls, in terms of like, hey, I'm from New Zealand. I got this product. I think it's going to be great for you guys. I know this process who knows you, trying to pull in all the kind of connections. And they were pretty cagey at the beginning. But after a while, they're like, oh, send us a few over. And Aussie's grown to be a really, really good market. And then I thought, well, the States is a big place.
Yeah, a lot of amputees in the States.
A lot of amputees there. I wonder what we could do there. So New Zealand, Australia was a great place to test and improve the product. And we've, Kiwis are pretty hard on stuff, so you get some good feedback, make a couple of changes kind of here and there. And then I thought, oh, cool, I really want to get to the States. And I had my eyes set on this one supplier because I was like, well, they're going to be able to get my product into the USA and probably Canada as well. So I was old school hustling on the phone call, emails, trying to get hold of people, and no one would return my calls, right? There's this guy from New Zealand. And eventually I got chatting with this dude. And he said, yeah, I'll meet you. Sounds like a good product. Let's do it. So a few weeks passed and time came for the meeting. He never turned up. The poor bloke died.
Oh, jeez.
Just before the meeting. So I was like, oh, it's no good. And I kept hustling. And I eventually found another guy from the same company who was like, tell me what it is. And I explained to him. He said, don't like it. It's never going to fly. I was like, gutted. But I'm not going to give up. So there was a conference coming up in the States last year. I said to my wife, I was like, let's go. Let's throw some money at this. We didn't have a lot. And let's go over there and we'll just wing it. And I remember sitting in the airport car park with her and I was like, Bex, let's go and have some fun. I don't know how this is going to go, but we're going to have a good time. Let's enjoy it and we'll see what kind of comes out of it. So we headed over to Indianapolis, of all places. Haven't really done much traveling in the States, and we walk into this exhibit room, and it was just unbelievable, the scale of it, right? It was just phenomenal. Set up our booth, and away we go, and people are coming in saying, hey, where do we get one of these? And we're saying, oh, well, this distributor, they don't actually, supply it. But their booth's just over there, so why don't you go and ask them why they're not? And perhaps you have a yarn to them. So we sent scores and scores and scores of people over to this one distributor. And I was trying to find this one key person over there, and whenever I went over, he wasn't there. And there was one prosthetist, so a guy who fits legs from the States somewhere, and he was chatting to us, and he said, I can't believe these guys don't stock. I'm going to go over there right now and have a yarn to them, and I'll get him to come over and have a chat to you. So I just got off the toilet, one afternoon, right? And Bex was manning the stand and come back, and this guy comes over and he's like, oh, hey, there's been a few people come over to our stall today. I was like, oh, yeah, really? And he said, like, I think I've got some bad info off some people, and I'd quite like to do some business with you guys. I was like, really? That'd be great.
Yeah.
So it was, it was old school hustling and just kind of putting ourselves over there and giving it a nudge. And that really was the start of the whole, the US, conquering, not that we're anywhere near conquering, but giving it a first kind of crack and getting out of here over there, boots on the ground, getting to know the lingo and the people, making some connections, establishing distributors. And now we've got 2 distributors over there. Slowly trying to get into other kind of markets, and it's been a real adventure. I don't do this thing for the money. I do it for the challenge. And people say, well, who are you? What are you all about? Like, I love an adventure. I love taking a risk. I like making commitments, and I like being part of things that just money can't buy. And the Willing Pike Challenge, money can't buy that, right? The Pro-Armour has just been a really unique and exciting journey. So those kind of things that really spin my wheels. And at the end of the day, we're just about giving amputees more freedom and confidence. And as an amputee myself and the director, I get it, and that really, I love it when I see images of people all over the world that are starting to use the product. So I love it.
It's an incredible transformation of what you've done since Ruapehu. You talk about making the most of your life, and you've written a best-selling book and William Pike Challenge, and now this business to help others. What's your relationship now with the thought of being an amputee? Like, I spoke to Bex, and she's like, he makes it look really easy, and it's actually a lot of grit and grind behind the scenes to actually go about your day-to-day lives. But
it's so easy to hop onto social media or look at a book or hear someone speak and think, oh, that guy's got it good, and hey, look, he gets around so well and goes on all these adventures.
Guilty. Guilty.
Yeah, guilty, right? You've seen that bloody big old kingfish I had on my social media recently, great fun. Love my spearfishing. But there's a lot of hard work and grit and shit that goes in behind being an amputee. It really does. It's not an easy walk in the park. It's a pain in the ass, if I'm honest, right? But I don't like to look at it from that kind of negative mindset. I like to see challenges that I face in my life that only kind of build me up, not kind of wear me down. It's just my kind of mindset. So being an amputee, like I have with a short stump, I'm quite a skinny dude. I don't have a lot of surface area, and a long stump to bear weight around the surface, it is a challenge. Summertime, it's real pain, like sweat. I've got like a silicone liner which goes over my skin. So if you can kind of imagine wearing rubber gloves on your hands and on a hot day in summertime, you're going to be full of moisture, right? So I do have to stop often if I'm hiking or even just walking in the summer heat, peel the leg off, peel it back on again. So blisters not often, but and trying new legs, you can get a bit of a blister here and there, ingrowing hairs over summertime. And I'm of the view that in most things in life that kind of better never stops, right? So I've got this mindset that, yes, I can do the day-to-day things with my leg, but I do believe we can make that better. So I go and work with the crew at the Artificial Limb Centre, Piki Waihanga here in New Zealand. And I'm probably a demanding patient, and I'm okay with that. But I want to get the leg to fit better and better, and so that I can do the things that I love to do with less kind of hassle. And it's just one of those things that I just constantly chip away at. And I say to new amputees, Well, actually, I'm a peer mentor, so part of my community service is that when someone loses a limb, I'll typically get a phone call. You go and see Johnny, he's lost his leg in hospital, and that's something I love doing because I love that space. I'm an expert on that space, and I say, hey guys, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I like to go and kind of inspire them that the best thing that you can do is spend a lot of time in that leg shop to get that leg right, and if it's not fitting right, go back. Look after your health, your fitness, your weight. I don't like to carry any kind of extra weight. I like to be fit so that getting around on a prosthetic leg is easy. And also when I go into the outdoors, it's going to be harder. So I like to enjoy it and not be struggling along. So prosthetics, they're wonderful, and they give people like me and many others a kind of new lease on life, and I'm incredibly grateful for ACC and the support that they kind of provide me, and the taxpayers, thank you very much, as well. But yeah, we're very lucky with what we've got here in New Zealand with prosthetics, but they're not an easy ride.
Are you an outlier in terms of the amount of outdoor activities that you do as an amputee?
I'm not a run, jump, sprint amputee. There's very few of those around. But I think I'm just a battler, I'll go on walks and that with my mates. We'll go climb high up peaks, kind of hunting and stuff, and they're great. They wait for me. I can keep up with them, but I stop every now and then, pull my leg off and dry the sweat out and carry on again. So that's what kind of slows me down. So in terms of being an outlier, I'm probably in the general amputee population, yes, I'm more active, but I'm just wanting to walk around, hike. I suppose it's extreme stuff sometimes, but I just want to do things that I love. So
the reason I ask is, I guess, as a full-bodied, I don't know what the definition is, but you know what I mean. But like, I would not know how to approach that conversation around, hey, do you want to come for a walk? Do you want to come for a hike? Do you want to join? I would, like I am right now, I would stumble and fumble around a conversation of, fuck, I didn't realize you could kayak. We can go kayaking. Is that a common
it is
divide between?
Yeah, it is. I'll turn up to schools or events like, oh, can you come up the stairs? Like, yeah, all good. But I'm not like, yeah, of course I can. I'm like, I can, no problem. Because people that don't have a disability or haven't been in those spaces, they don't know that, and I guess I've developed that understanding, and also I guess empathy with people with disabilities, that it's okay to ask, and it's different. It looks weird. The kids will say to you, where's the skin gone from your leg, or is your leg going to grow back? Great question. So I guess I've kind of got that understanding of that. Yeah, people might not know how to handle me or have that conversation. Sometimes I do forget that, right? And can have a lot of fun with it too. So, yeah, it's just being wary of that. And it's a good reminder, actually, just to, have that conversation and kind of be open. But I guess most of the time I'm around my mates who are usually giving me grief and trying to slow me down.
I asked Bex for a few good stories about like sort of gags that you might do with your leg, and she said weddings. You've got a particularly interesting way of approaching weddings with waterways.
Absolutely. So, you kind of wait till with waterways. Yeah, well, there's a couple of things here. I'm not too sure. So what was she referring to? So we'll go for both, right? Okay. So we'll go for both. So I like my fishing, right? So when I kind of go to weddings, I'm always like on the topo map, I'm like, are there any creeks around that might house some good Kiwi eels in there, right? New Zealand eels.
Right. Normal thought when approaching a wedding.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I go into the garage and I get a hammer and I knock the barbs down because I don't want to actually kill them and catch them. It's a bit of fun, So, we'll just get a bit of venison off the table or something. And just after the dinner and just before the dance, you just take 20, and just go out and do a little bit of eeling if you can, and get a fish and have a beer, and then just put it back and kind of come back in
by yourself.
Oh, no, I like taking a crew. Yeah. Particularly the younger boys that might have had a few drinks, or probably kids in time as well. Just like a little adventure, during the wedding. I don't want to miss too much. And then get back, and obviously, the night kind of carries on, and people are like, oh, can we drink out of that leg? Yeah, you can drink out of that leg, actually. So you've got to go quite prepared, right? Because these legs have got a bit of suction in them, and they've got a little hole in the bottom. So you always have a little bit of blue tack. You can just kind of seal that up, and then you can typically fit probably 3.5 of those export golds into a leg, which people do quite enjoy doing, and they do like shoeies as well. So you take the rubber foot shell off and just pop a drink in there and put it back on again. So all harmless fun, right? It's all harmless fun. So good times.
That was the fishing one was the one I was going for. And apparently there's one particular instance where there was like an eel incident and there was a
show and tell.
A gang member was involved.
Yes. No, I made good friends with a gang member that night down at the Taitapu River and had a good yarn with them, and we were great mates. And I had some salmon off the table. Of course, it was all flaking and I wasn't getting anywhere, so he gave me an eel, which was really good of him. So I took it back and showed him. I took it back in. So you never know who you're going to meet on an eeling trip, right?
Was it an instant thing for you to make friends with your leg, and how it can be used as a conversation starter or used as a prop for drinking games? Like how soon did you normalize it as part of your everyday life?
I wouldn't say it's drinking games often, but especially in this day and age. But I mean, like, it's something that's different, right? People have always got questions about it. I like to have a bit of fun, so I didn't want to make it like a taboo subject or don't talk about my leg. I was like the leg cleaners. Let's have a little bit of fun with this, And I remind myself that we could always do more of that, having a bit more fun in life, right? So it's a good reminder to have a bit of fun and make a bit of a laugh, and it's all harmless fun, and it's good. So yeah,
because I'll be hand on heart. I wasn't sure how to approach some of it. Like even you just whipping it off and lifting it up like that. I'm also, I am. My initial reaction is like, oh shit! Like, I didn't realize it's that easy. It's honestly, I'm quite naive around that space.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see people with disabilities now. Whether being in wheelchairs or with cerebral palsy or amputees, and I guess I've got that unique ability to connect now, more so know that it's okay to ask a question. And I think I would rather someone come and say, hi, I'm Bob, and I'd like to ask a question about your leg. I'm like, okay, that's cool, because that's different. You know what I mean? It's all the way you approach something, right? So, so I think that's okay. And also, seeing people and if they've got disability, to ask, you need a hand up those stairs there. They'll probably say, no, bugger off, I'm fine. But at least you kind of ask. And I think most people with a disability understand that they are different, and that people don't understand. So it's okay to have those conversations.
Getting towards the end now and just sort of reflecting on everything we've talked about, with having achieved so much after what happened at Ruapehu, would you prefer to have lived the life like you have with one leg, or would you have, I don't, maybe that's a bad question.
It's not a bad question. Keep going with it.
But looking back, are you grateful for what has happened because of the life it has sort of framed for you, or would you prefer to have two legs?
Well, we'd always prefer to have two legs, right? But I reflect on my life over the last 16 or so years, and I feel incredibly grateful for the opportunities that I've had in terms of doing things in the outdoors. I've been to Antarctica, climbed a mountain there. I obviously started the Pike Challenge. There's Pro-Armour, there's speaking, there's these type of interactions right now, which probably would not have happened had I not been on top of Mount Ruapehu. It has enriched my life beyond all, beyond anything I could imagine. So the long answer is I would probably choose this. It's a really funny one. I'd like to have my cake and eat it too, right? And have the legs and still do this. But
what an incredible answer to give. Like, nearing on 40, imagine that 22-year-old kid in hospital waking up thinking, imagine at 40 years, I'm going to answer a question with, I'm glad this happened.
Yeah. It's wild, isn't it?
But also thinking back to William sitting in the dome shelter, unable to move, thinking about all the things that you wanted to do with your life. Is there anything that's left not done currently?
I mean, there's always me setting goals in terms of going on adventures and business and things like that. So absolutely, I would really like to, I did a lot of things, with the William Pike Challenge. We're looking at ways on how can we make this program available to the average Joe and to corporates, So I'm looking that's something that I really want to kind of go and do. That's super exciting. I look at the runway with Pro-Armour. I think I've got a lot to do in that space still. And above all that, and I feel bad we haven't really touched on this, like, there's my family. That's actually...
I'm setting you up for it.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that. But that's the most important thing. You know, I'm happy to fail in anything in life, in my businesses or whatever, but that's my most important job. You know, being a good husband and being a good dad for those kids. So we have a lot of fun. I love taking the kids out on adventures. I took Oliver on his first little overnighter recently in the boat. So we don't have a ship. We've got a 5.8 metre tinny. He slept in the cabin. I slept on the back. Woke up with wet feet because of the dew, you know, overnight. But you know, we had just a beautiful time sitting on the back of that boat, smashing up hundreds of kinner and feeding snapper, right? So it's those little things there that's what I've got a lot to do with those kids. Mount Tongariro is a special place in my heart. It was the first mountain that I ever climbed with one leg, with Cam. It was the first mountain I climbed with my prosthetic leg after my accident. And continuing on that trend, I thought, is this a good mountain? So when Bex and I had been together for quite a while, I thought, you know, I'm going to propose to her, but it's got to be exciting. She's got to work for it, right? So I took her up to the dome shelter, and in her back of her mind, she's thinking, this joker's going to propose to me. It was just a test, you know, it was to get her up that hard ice and, you know, see how good she was in the crampons and ice axes. And then I was talking to Cam because he lives down that way. I was looking at weather forecasts thinking, you know, how can I get Bex up there to maybe propose on Mount Tongariro or something like that? That could be pretty cool. He said, do it, mate. Forecast is looking good. You got to do it. So I barrowed down, and she knew nothing of it at all. I chucked a few ciders in the back of the car, you know, and left them at the road end. And of course, that night in the Mangati Papa Hut, I couldn't sleep, right? And I think I woke up at 4 o'clock and was meant to get up at 5. And I was like, it's time to get up. She said, what time is it? I'm like, it's 5. So off we went. Nice alpine start. Beautiful morning. Clear skies, but it was blowing. Really blowing, and we got up to the South Crater, which is a flat spot up there underneath Narahoe, and I had to come out a cup of soup because she was freezing, and I spilled half of it in my bag. It was a disaster. Anyway, carried on, got up round towards the summit of Mount Tongariro. I'm like, yes, it's going to happen. And we got up onto the summit, and I was looking at her, and she had a helmet on, she had a balaclava, her goggles. I couldn't see her, and she was petrified because it was blowing, and I was like, oh god, this is not good at all. So I was like, let's step off the side of the mountain. So we dropped off a wee bit and then parked up, and I had some cheese, some crackers, and I had my crampons on, and I popped a knee, and I proposed to her on the side of Mount Tongariro. So that was very, very special. And you know, continuing on that thread of, you know, the kids, I'd love to get the kids up there as well. I don't care if they get into mountaineering or not, but I love going on adventures with the kids. It doesn't need to be big ones. It can just be, you know, little bushwalks. And to be honest, we don't really do the bushwalk. We kind of sit and we throw some stones and we cook a hot mile and a cup of tea and then wander back to the car, you know, because they're 4 and 7, right? So it's those things which I'm sure we'll all look back on. And as the kids get older, you know, they're going to be exponentially probably less time with them as they become teens. So got to make the most of it, right?
What's their understanding of your amputation? How have you explained that? Have you explained that?
I mean, they probably think that every dad should have a missing leg, right?
Yeah. I imagine so.
Yeah, exactly. No, they know. So yeah, I mean, early in their life, they'll obviously ask, you know, what's wrong with the leg and things like that. And I just simplify. I'm like, I was on a mountain and it erupted and my legs got squashed and the doctors chopped it off. You know, that's probably the narrative that lives with them right now. And that's cool. But they'll ask a couple more questions, a couple more. So I've actually got this book. I just have a look here. Whoa, look at that photograph inside the book. It's like, yeah, you know, it was pretty busted. They had to chop that off. So I think as time goes on, they will begin to see what it's all about. I'm actually quite excited. I'm speaking at the National Young Leaders events this year, and there's a big event that we do it's in Auckland, a couple of thousand kids there. And I think I'm going to bring Harriet along for that first time and just poke her in the back of the audience. And it's an electric setting with a great setup and MCs and all sorts, and you know, they make you feel like, you know, you're on top of the world in terms of being a speaker. You know, yeah. It's not great for the ego. And anyway, yeah, it would be very interesting to see. Yeah, her reaction on that is, oh, is this what Dad does? Or, yeah, so lots of fun things to look forward to.
What's the reaction when you do, do you show that photo in every speaking gig that you do of your leg, of the aftermath of what your leg was?
And I got one Auckland school that's been doing the William Pike Challenge. Actually, it's Dio for the last 11 years. And for 3 or 4 years in a row, we had a student faint when I put the photo up.
Really?
But it was in the hall. It was like February. It was hot. Like it was, thank you to a few other factors there. But I show that photograph in every single presentation, and not once yet have I had a complaint. And I do lead into it. Hey guys, hope you haven't had a late lunch here. The next photograph's not looking good, and do look away if you need to. And I flick it up for a couple of seconds, and then I put a blank slide on. But it's real. And I think that's an important part of the story. I don't want to brush anything under the mat. In fact, I've got a CD of a lot of those photos. But it is what it is.
Mate, it's epic. It's I was at a friend's house the other day, and there was some book like Kiwi Heroes or something, and it's like William Pike. I was like, holy shit, he's coming on the pod. And then like Sam this morning, William Pike Challenge in the schools. Like, you've made such a difference. Like you're such a perfect low-key legend, like an epic story, but it's what you've done afterwards which has sort of elevated you. So really excited to see what's next. Like, this business seems like it's going global. It already is. William Pike Challenge continues. Go on, Shay.
Did you think, when you're in the 13th stream at Westlake Boys High, that you would be masterminding like a global takeover for a business?
In the 13th stream out of 13, amongst being nipple grippled and teased amongst some of my peers, I just wanted to be a scuba diving instructor. That was what I wanted to do. I just wanted to go diving all the time. And never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined where I am today.
Are you building a life where you can scuba dive whenever you want?
That's the goal, right? I do a lot more spearfishing these days, and I love I suppose being in Auckland, you can nip out in the boat for a day and you can kind of get away from it all, and it feels like a solid adventure. I love spearfishing because I'm not reeling in a chili bin full of fish either. I can be selective, take a couple of fish and then kind of take them back. I can work hard and be shattered at the end of the day and have good fun. So, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to create a life where I'm giving back and making a difference, that I'm creating time and opportunities for myself, and just really spend quality time with family and friends.
And how much of just being a Kiwi has been central to your story of success?
Yeah. I suppose with Pro-Armour, being a Kiwi, you've got a big point of difference there, especially over in the US market, and you open your mouth and they say, huh, and you've got a good in there to begin with. I also think the number 8 wire kind of bent, around just seeing a problem, identifying the problem, thinking up a solution, trying it out and giving it a go. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there, of course, that are sitting on some problems, and there'll be a solution right underneath their nose, which I never thought I could dream one up, but hey, look, I have. So I think there's a lot of potential out there for people. Yeah.
It's crazy. You made mention before about like LinkedIn and the power of LinkedIn and being a Kiwi, being able to like flick a message and people are willing to help. Like, in the process of researching the episode, Stephen's got the connection with Dr. John Bonning, who helped you. I know Dan Harcourt personally, who flew the chopper from National Park to Taumaranui.
Yeah.
Paris Daniel, my stepdaughter, was a student at Murray's Bay Primary School. Hilltop was a school that I went to.
Yeah.
Sam Blackburn, our producer, has been on the William Pike Challenge. Like, you're so connected into a whole raft of New Zealand society, yet you're still quite under the radar. It's wild.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that in a way, But look, I think that is the beauty of being a Kiwi. It is quite small and tight-knit, and obviously there's downsides to that as well. But I love being able to pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone, and things are starting to come full circle where that's starting to happen to me, and I'm like, I'd love to help, because there's been so many people that have given their time for nothing to help me to get where I am now. So bring on that full circle, and
Mate, it's an epic story. Thanks so much for coming in and sharing it with us and giving us your time, Shay.
Yeah, amazing. Like, such a role model for just Kiwis getting in and doing what they can to help other Kiwis out. It's phenomenal, and I hope there's a way to roll the project out through corporates. That's an exciting kind of extension of what you're doing, just to maybe get into corporate and get into adult life, because there's a lot of like Kiwi adults out there that could do with a dose of getting out to the environment.
That's right. It's a concept at the moment, and I'm pretty keen to build on that and just really extend the success of 30,000+ Kiwi kids going through this program, and I think that us adults could benefit from it, at the same time. In fact, I do a staff outdoor activity every term. So just a few of us went up to do a bushwalk just up north of Auckland on Monday, actually. So it was a nice little thing. And you get back from that 2 or 3 hour bushwalk, and it's like, oh, what a start to the week it was, you know what I mean? But to have a bit of that more consistency throughout the year, and to be contributing to community and just doing things that you're passionate about is good for the soul, it's good for the mind, and it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Good vibes, Will Pike. Thanks for joining us, mate. It's been awesome.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me in. No, thank you very much for having me. I was quite starstruck to see the message come through via Instagram to say, do you want to come on? Didn't quite believe it at first, but I've been following your show long before I got invited on this. You guys are doing a fantastic thing. You've inspired me through a lot of the interviews that you've had, and I've taken a lot away from it. So congrats. You guys are kind of on the start of your adventure, but perhaps we reconvene in a few years' time and see where we're at, eh?
Sounds good. Thanks, Will. That's so nice to hear. Awesome.
Thank you.